History books love to tell us about the big ones, right? Hastings, Waterloo, Gettysburg. We think these are the moments that forged our world. But what if I told you the real turning points, the ones that truly shifted the course of empires, happened in the shadows? These aren't the battles you read about in school. These are the secret clashes, the forgotten ambushes, and the bloody negotiations that history tried to bury. Today, we're digging them up. We're diving into 8 historic battles that secretly changed everything. These are the whispers in the corridors of power, the silent knife in the dark that redirected the river of time. Forget what you think you know about warfare. Let's explore the conflicts that operated behind the scenes, shaping our reality without us even realizing it. First up, let's journey back to 53 BC, to a place that should be famous but isn't, the Battle of Carrhae. Everyone knows about the mighty Roman legions, the unstoppable force of the ancient world. Well, on this day, they were stopped, and it was brutal. The ambitious Roman general Crassus, one of the richest men in history, led 7 legions into the desert, expecting an easy victory over the Parthian Empire. He was arrogant, and he was wrong. Instead of a straightforward fight, the Romans were met by a storm of arrows from the Parthian horse archers. These weren't just any archers. They had a revolutionary tactic. They used camels as mobile supply depots, carrying thousands of extra arrows. This meant they could unleash a relentless, unending barrage. The Romans, with their heavy shields and short swords, were trapped in the open desert, completely helpless. The legendary Roman square formation became a death trap. Crassus was killed, the Roman standards were captured, a massive humiliation, and Rome's eastward expansion was halted for centuries. This wasn't just a defeat, it redrew the map of the ancient world, creating a boundary between East and West that would define politics and culture for 1,000 years. Now, let's jump forward to 718 AD, to the walls of Constantinople. We all hear about the Battle of Tours in 732, where Charles Martel supposedly saved Europe from Islamic expansion. But the real, and arguably more critical, fight happened 14 years earlier. The massive Umayyad Caliphate laid siege to Constantinople, the heart of the Byzantine Empire, with an overwhelming force of ships and soldiers. If Constantinople fell, the gateway to Europe would be wide open. The city was on the brink of collapse, but the Byzantines had a secret weapon, a terrifying invention known as Greek fire. This was an ancient form of napalm, a liquid incendiary that could burn on water. As the Umayyad fleet crowded the harbor, Byzantine ships unleashed jets of this burning liquid. The enemy's ships were engulfed in flames, sailors leaping into the water only to find the fire spreading across the surface. The siege was broken, and the Caliphate's navy was decimated. This secret weapon didn't just save a city, it saved an empire and arguably halted the primary advance into Eastern Europe, long before the more famous battle in France. Let's move to the misty shores of England in 1066. Everyone knows about the Battle of Hastings, where William the Conqueror defeated King Harold, but the real story begins 3 weeks earlier, at a battle history often forgets, the Battle of Stamford Bridge. Before William even set foot in England, another claimant to the throne, the fierce Viking king Harold Hardrada, invaded from the north. England's King Harold Godwinson had to force march his army nearly 200 miles in just 4 days to meet this threat. The ensuing battle was one of the bloodiest in Viking history. The English Saxons caught the Vikings by surprise and utterly annihilated them. It was a stunning victory for Harold, but it came at a terrible cost. His army was exhausted and battered. Just days later, news arrived. William had landed in the south. Harold had to turn his tired troops around and march another 250 miles back down the country. He went into the Battle of Hastings with a depleted, exhausted force. If not for Stamford Bridge, would a fresh, fully manned Saxon army have defeated William? It's one of history's greatest what-ifs. The secret battle in the north directly sealed the fate of the one in the south. Next, we sail to the Far East, to the year 1592 and the Battle of Hansen Island. Japan, under the ambitious Toyotomi Hideyoshi, launched a massive invasion of Korea with the goal of conquering China. The Japanese army was battle-hardened and swiftly overran most of the Korean peninsula. All seemed lost. But on the sea, one man stood in their way, Admiral Yi Sun-sin. He was a brilliant naval strategist who faced a much larger Japanese fleet. At Hansen Island, he used a revolutionary tactic known as the crane wing formation. He lured the Japanese fleet into a wide bay. Then his powerful warships, known as turtle ships, emerged to encircle and annihilate them. These turtle ships were iron-plated, effectively acting as floating fortresses that were impervious to Japanese cannons. Admiral Yi's victory was decisive. He crippled the Japanese navy, cutting off their supply lines and reinforcements to their army on the mainland. This single naval engagement stalled the entire invasion and ultimately saved Korea, preventing a Japanese conquest of China that would have completely reshaped East Asian history. Let's head to the New World, to the year 1759, and a battle that decided the fate of North America, the Battle of the Plains of Abraham, fought just outside Quebec City. This clash between the British and the French during the 7 Years' War is often summarized in a few sentences, but its execution was a masterclass in covert operations. The British, led by General James Wolfe, were stymied by Quebec's formidable defenses. So, Wolfe devised a daring high-risk plan. Under the cover of darkness, his soldiers scaled the sheer cliffs leading up to the Plains of Abraham, a lightly defended plateau next to the city. The French, under the Marquis de Montcalm, were completely surprised to find the British army assembled on their doorstep at dawn. The battle that followed was short but incredibly bloody. Both Wolfe and Montcalm were mortally wounded, but the British won. The fall of Quebec led directly to France, ceding Canada to Britain. This one secret, audacious maneuver determined whether North America would be primarily English-speaking or French-speaking. The entire cultural and political landscape of a continent was altered by soldiers climbing a cliff in the dark. Our sixth battle takes us to the heart of Africa, to 1879 and the Battle of Isandlwana. The British Empire, at the height of its power, believed its advanced rifles and disciplined redcoats were invincible against primitive armies. They were about to learn a devastating lesson. A British force invaded the Zulu kingdom, confident of a quick victory. At Isandlwana, a portion of the British army made a critical mistake. They were overconfident and failed to form a proper defensive perimeter. The Zulu army, numbering over 20,000 warriors, used a brilliant tactic called the Horns of the Buffalo. The central chest of the army pinned the British down, while the horns swung around to encircle and annihilate them. Despite their spears and shields against rifles, the Zulus' superior strategy and overwhelming numbers led to one of the most shocking defeats in British colonial history. The victory sent shockwaves through the empire. It proved that indigenous armies could defeat a modern European force through clever tactics and sheer determination, inspiring future resistance movements across the globe. Now for a battle that wasn't fought with guns, but with ink and nerve. In 1916, the Sykes-Picot Agreement. While World War I raged, two diplomats, Britain's Mark Sykes and France's Francois Georges-Picot, secretly met to carve up the Middle East. With the Ottoman Empire on the verge of collapse, they drew lines on a map, assigning territories to British and French control, completely ignoring the ethnic, religious, and tribal realities on the ground. They created artificial states like Iraq and Syria, lumping together disparate groups who had been rivals for centuries. This secret agreement betrayed promises of independence made to Arab leaders who had helped the Allies fight the Ottomans. The consequences of this backroom deal are still being felt today. The arbitrary borders they drew have been at the heart of countless conflicts, wars, and political instability in the Middle East for over a century. This battle of colonial arrogance reshaped a region and created problems that continue to define modern geopolitics. Finally, we arrive at a frigid confrontation in 1969, the Sino-Soviet border conflict. During the Cold War, we tend to focus on the rivalry between the US and the USSR, but the two communist giants, China and the Soviet Union, were also bitter rivals. Tensions exploded on a tiny, disputed island in the US Issyk River called Damansky or Jinbao Island. A series of skirmishes escalated into a full-blown undeclared battle. Chinese troops ambushed Soviet border guards, leading to heavy fighting with tanks and artillery. For a moment, the world stood on the brink of nuclear war between two communist powers. This secret war had a profound global impact. It shattered the idea of a unified communist bloc and pushed China to seek a new ally against the Soviets, that ally the United States. This conflict directly led to Richard Nixon's historic visit to China in 1972, a move that completely redrew the Cold War map and shifted the global balance of power, creating the triangular diplomacy that would dominate international relations for decades. From ancient deserts to frozen rivers, these hidden battles prove that history is more complex than we're told. The real story isn't always fought on the grand, famous battlefields. It's often decided in secret, by a clever tactic, a new weapon, or a line drawn on a map. These 8 conflicts, though often overlooked, had consequences that rippled through our world to this very day. Which of these secret battles do you think was the most impactful? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoy uncovering the darker, hidden side of history, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching.